Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome to the video, and today I am talking about 6 tips to help you maximize your lineup. The first tip I would say is utilize the spread. This is a very good jumping off point when creating your lineup. Understand how to read the spread, understand what that all means. When there are big slates, sometimes you get into 10, 12, 14 game slates, it can be very overwhelming. So this is a good jumping off point to start. You look at the highest totals and the teams that are favorited in those high scoring games, and then you try to find the highest point scorers in the highest game totals. I do this with pretty much all my lineups. Now, just knowing the totals isn't where your research should stop. You should also look at key matchups in those games. But exploiting high total games is very good technique as just a launching off point for your research. High totals and good matchups are two things right off the bat you should play. Number 2, exploit injuries. Understand how injuries affect the DFS landscape. This is huge. This is very important to understand. If you know how injuries are affecting the landscape of a team, you can exploit it for mega points. For example, Washington Wizards, right? When John Wall was playing, I'm not going to take Austin Rivers, because when John Wall is in, Austin Rivers isn't getting any playing time. He's getting no minutes. He's getting maybe 20 minutes when John Wall is in. John Wall gets injured. Now Austin Rivers gets a bump to about 20, 30, 35 minutes, which makes him a more viable option. So understand the rotation. In football, when a star receiver goes down, that opens up more catches for the second receiver. I don't really have an example for that one off the top of my head, but it is very important to understand how the injuries affect rotation. When one guy goes down, who's the next man up, and how is that guy doing? Number 3, don't fall for recency bias. This is very important. Listen, because this killed me a lot when I first started playing DFS. So this is one point I really want to hit home. If there's one thing you take away from this video, it's this point right here. Past performance does not equal future results. Just because a guy does really poor one night doesn't mean he can't have a big game the next night. Just because somebody has a big game one night doesn't mean he can't have a bad game the next. Instead of you can't look at a guy's performance in a box, in a vacuum, and say just because he did good one night, he's going to do good at the next night. You have to look at the whole picture. The whole picture is very important. Like, let me give you an example. The Giants are terrible at playing defense against the tight end. So if I play a tight end against the Giants, and he does well, and then the next week I play and then the next week that same guy is playing against the best tight end defense in the NFL, I'm not going to play him. Don't allow the results from last night affect your pick to the night after. Look at the whole picture. The matchups, the team. Sometimes, especially in basketball, this is huge. Like, after a long stretch of games, guys will take a rest, and then they won't get as many minutes, which means they won't get as many fantasy points. So I think I hammered this point enough. Recency bias is bad. Don't do it. It will hurt all your lineups. Rule number 4. This is just a very quick point. You don't need to spend all 50,000 points. You can leave points on the table. In fact, this is something I would recommend. If you leave 200-300 points, sometimes 400-600 points, that can give you an edge against the field, against all the Sharks who used all their points. Don't feel like you have to use all your salary. If you leave some points on the table, that's okay. You could still put that lineup out. In the future, when you see my lineups that I create, you will see that I leave points on the table. And leaving points on the table is absolutely okay. Don't be afraid to do it. Again, a problem I ran into was reworking all my lineups to utilize all the points. But you don't have to do that. If you think there is a lot of value on the slate and you can put up good points with only using some of the points and not all, that's okay. Do that. I'm going to make a whole video on finding value plays on DraftKings in a later time. So stay tuned for that. But right now, just to bring the point across, you don't need to spend your whole salary. Point number 5 is, and I'd say this is probably the least important out of the 6 points, but this is a technique that I like to use. I'd like to utilize the game stacks, and it's a technique that I like to use, but if there's one point you ignore in this video, I would say it'd be this one. A good game stack can really help your lineup though. So what do I mean by game stacking? You choose 2 guys on the same team that can double your points. So if I have Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. in my lineup, I get a point for the completion from Eli, and I get the point for the reception from Odell Beckham Jr. So I get double the points on a single play. That is a game stack. Game stacking is very big in hockey. When you get the assist to the goals, that can help maximize your lineup. In baseball, when if you play with the 2, 3, and 4 spots in a lineup, that can lead to a hit and then a lot of RBI bonuses that you can get. Utilizing the game stack, something I wouldn't say you have to do, but something I would definitely recommend. The last point I want to make is have 1 to 2 guys that give you a little pause. A guy that could go off and a guy that could sink to the bottom. And I say have some pause because when these guys do go off and you get a cheap value play that does go off and they're low owned, it can propel you up. You have to have 1 to 2 risky picks with a pretty low floor but very high upside, because when they play to their upside, it propels you upwards into the draft. Now, I've had plenty of drafts where I picked a guy with a low floor and high upside that crashed and did bad, and I lost. But then, at the same token, I've had some guys play up to their upside and help me do very well. You have to understand that this is a gamble, and you have to take a little bit of risk. When you see these $1 million winners, these $100,000 winners, these $1,000 winners, they all take risk. At the end of the day, this is gambling, and gambling is a risk. And if you want to hit big, you have to have 1 to 2 guys that make you think a little bit. It could go wrong, it could go right. You can't have all surefire picks all the time. So that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you like the content, leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you don't like the content, let me know how I could do better. Give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending how you feel about my videos. And I'll see you on the next one.